The broke campus beauty gave up her virginity in exchange for me covering her grandmother's medical bills. She endured the humiliation, serving me for 5 years. Every night she begged for mercy, and not once did I ever let her go. But when she willingly threw herself at me today, I shoved her away forcefully. It turned out I had awakened my memories. I was the villainous side character in a novel. She was the heroine, and the hero was her childhood sweetheart. According to the plot, she would soon become wildly successful, and I would die a miserable death at her hands. To save myself, I went to an agency that specialized in faking deaths. Mr. Anderson, the contract is signed. As agreed, we will arrange a custom faked death for you in 17 days. In the reception room, a staff member handed me the freshly drafted contract. I took the contract, glanced through it, and asked again just to be sure, "Will the body look like me?" The staffer replied confidently, "You can rest assured, sir. The body will be custom-made to your exact measurements. No one will ever suspect a thing." With that assurance, I finally relaxed. I pulled a card from my wallet, paid in full without a second thought, and then turned and left. The first thing I saw when I stepped outside was a luxurious stretch Lincoln. The driver, who had been waiting, saw me and respectfully hurried to open the door. "Mr. Ethan." I nodded and slid into the back seat of the car. The driver closed the door for me, returned to his seat, and started the engine. The drive was smooth, and we eventually pulled up to the Anderson family villa. This was the house I had bought specifically to live with Chloe. I hadn't been back long when the front door opened again, and a woman with a graceful figure walked in. Her face was exquisite, but her demeanor was cold and distant, keeping everyone at arm's length. She methodically took off her coat, walked over to the sofa, and pressed her soft body against mine. But a second later, I reacted sharply, pushing her away. "Wait!" Chloe's beautiful, moonlit eyes stared at me, as if she couldn't figure out what game I was playing now. "Sleeping with you every night, wasn't that the condition of our arrangement? We don't need to for now. I've been tired lately." I lowered my head, mumbling the lie. Luckily, she didn't seem to care, simply saying, "Then I'll get back to work." Chloe had been incredibly busy lately. She was preparing a startup project that was now in its most critical phase. I didn't stop her, just nodded and let her go. I thought she'd be working all night, but a short while later, she took a phone call and rushed out of her office. She stopped short when she saw I was still in the living room. "Since you don't need me tonight, I'm going out. I have something important to take care of." Seeing the rare hint of urgency on her otherwise impassive face, I knew the reason. Something important. It was just for Liam, but I said nothing, only nodding. With my permission, Chloe didn't linger, brushing past me as she rushed out. She reached the door and was about to leave when I suddenly called out, "Chloe, you don't have to do this anymore." Hearing my voice, Chloe stopped instinctively, standing there with a frown, waiting for me to finish. But my voice caught in my throat when I saw the impatience in her eyes. "Just go." In the end, I couldn't bring myself to say the rest, and just told her to leave. Only after her silhouette vanished into the night did I mutter to myself again, "You really won't have to do this anymore, because I'm leaving soon." As the scion of a wealthy New York family, I had it all: money, looks, and a great physique. I'd done plenty of ridiculous things, but the most ridiculous of all was buying a girlfriend during my freshman year of college. She was the famous campus beauty at NYU, and countless guys were after her. The line of her admirers stretched from our campus to others. But she was cold and detached, rejecting everyone with the same indifference, focusing only on her classes and her job. I fell for Chloe the moment I saw her, and all I wanted was to claim that untouchable beauty for myself. So when I found out her parents were dead, that she'd been raised by her grandmother who was now bedridden with a long-term illness, and that she was working herself to the bone just for the medical bills, I went to Chloe and made her a deal. I would pay her grandmother's medical bills, and in return, she would be my girlfriend. She had to come home on time every day and sleep with me a set number of times, until I grew tired of her. At the time, her grandmother was critically ill, and she desperately needed the money to save her only family member, so she agreed. 5 years have passed. Chloe and I have both graduated from college and started our careers, but our relationship hasn't changed. Grandma Sullivan still isn't well, I haven't gotten tired of Chloe, and she still lives in my house. Her attitude toward me is the same as ever, just as cold. I wasn't discouraged. I just thought that with enough time, I could eventually melt her heart. That is, until a few days ago when I fell down the stairs and hit my head. I woke up with the startling realization that I was living inside a novel. The heroine was Chloe, the hero was her childhood sweetheart, Liam, and I was just the villain. According to the novel's plot, The startup Chloe was working on would become a massive success in 17 days. This project would launch Chloe into the business elite, and from there she would soar, eventually reaching the pinnacle of the corporate world. And the first thing she would do after her success was to give me a huge sum of money and break up with me. But I wouldn't agree. I'd harass Chloe relentlessly, and then, driven by jealousy over her growing closeness with Liam, I'd repeatedly try to hurt him. In the end, Chloe would despise me completely, and I'd end up dying a miserable death in the streets. I refused to believe something so absurd, and I certainly didn't believe I would do something so stupid. Yet everything that had happened recently followed the novel's plot to the letter. And Chloe leaving me time and time again for Liam forced me to accept that the hero and heroine were destined to be together. After a full week of agonizing, I finally made up my mind. I couldn't gamble with my life. To escape the plot and change my fate, I made a decision. I couldn't love her anymore. I had to fake my death and get out of here, away from Chloe. Thinking about what was to come, I tossed and turned all night. Chloe didn't come back that night, and I didn't call to check on her. The next morning, I got up early, washed up, and went downstairs to eat breakfast by myself. The house was silent except for the sound of me eating. After I finished breakfast, the butler approached me hesitantly. "All the staff have been dismissed as you instructed. I'll be returning to the main estate today as well. Mr. Ethan, are you sure you don't need any staff?" "I'm sure." I shook my head, because soon I wouldn't be here at all. Seeing the worried look in his eyes, I didn't explain further. I just went upstairs, retrieved a letter, and handed it to him, instructing him to deliver it personally to my parents. I was afraid my parents would be devastated by my death, so in the letter, I explained everything about my plan to fake it. The letter explained that in 17 days, I would be going abroad to live under a new name, and that they shouldn't worry. When the time was right, I would come back to visit them in secret. I had considered taking my parents with me, but they were getting older, and their entire lives and business were here. Besides, this whole awakening business was so bizarre I could never explain it in a way that wouldn't make them think I'd lost my mind. Plus, if my parents disappeared along with me, I was afraid Chloe would get suspicious. So, all things considered, I decided it was best for my parents to stay, and for me to leave alone. Once I had everything settled on my end, I started making arrangements for Chloe. After dismissing the staff, I brought some fruit and went to see Grandma Sullivan. I never acted like a spoiled rich kid around her. For years, whenever I had free time, I'd visit Grandma Sullivan. I always brought her gifts, tried to make her laugh, chatted with her to ease her boredom, and even taught her how to use a smartphone so she could see the world without leaving her room. So, in contrast to Chloe's coldness, her grandmother was very fond of me. "Ethan, dear, when are you and Chloe planning on getting married?" When her grandmother asked this question again, the usual bashful smile was gone from my face, replaced by a bitter one. "Get married? How could we? I was leaving in 17 days, and even if I weren't, I'd likely just end up with the same fate as in the book. The person Chloe loved was Liam, so how could she ever marry me?" Seeing my silence, her grandmother sighed but still tried to comfort me. "I know, my granddaughter. Chloe isn't without feelings for you. It's just that the way you two got together wasn't right. There's bound to be a wall up in her heart because of it. Once you get past that, I'm sure you two can be happy together." I listened to her comforting words and forced a smile. I knew the plot of the book. I knew the only person Chloe had ever loved was Liam. The heroine only loves the hero. How could she fall for the villain? In the end, I said nothing and didn't argue with her. I just took out a credit card. "Grandma, when you get a chance, could you give this to Chloe for me?" I had set this card aside for Chloe's startup fund a long time ago, but I'd been hesitant to give it to her, worried I'd wound her pride. Now that I was aware of everything and had decided to leave, I figured I'd just have her grandmother pass it along. I hoped this might make Chloe think a little kindly of me, so that after my death, she wouldn't do anything too awful to my body. Her grandmother could tell something was off right away. She asked worriedly, "Did you and Chloe have another fight?" I shook my head. "We didn't fight. It's just, I'm going away for a while, to a place far from here." Before I could finish, a cold voice cut me off. "What faraway place are you going to?" I whipped my head around to see Chloe standing there, her expression dark, with Liam right beside her. I looked away and casually brushed her off with an excuse. "I'm going on a trip soon." As far as Chloe was concerned, my two favorite pastimes were sleeping with her and traveling the world. So, hearing my answer, she composed herself and didn't press the issue. She smoothly led Liam to a seat by her grandmother's bed, subtly squeezing me out to the side. "Grandma, you have no idea how stingy Chloe is. On the way here, I just wanted an ice cream, and she wouldn't even buy it for me. You have to talk to her. Liam started complaining the moment he sat down, pouting about how he'd been wronged. Chloe gave Liam a helpless look. Though her words were a rebuttal, they were filled with concern. Are you serious? Did you forget about your stomach issues again? You want to eat something frozen? I wonder who it was that was dying of stomach pain last time, swearing they'd never eat anything cold again and asking me to make sure of it. Liam just grinned, and her eyes filled with adoration. There were 4 of us in the room, but as soon as he and Chloe arrived, she only had eyes for him. Pushed to the side, I watched the easy, natural chemistry between them and couldn't help a self-deprecating smile. It was always like this. With them, I was always the outsider. But I wasn't as hurt as I used to be. This time, I had let everything go. I let go of Chloe, let go of all my love for her, and completely gave her back to her hero. Grandma Sullivan saw the flicker of loneliness in my eyes, then glanced at Chloe, who was pointedly ignoring me, and sighed to herself. Chloe, Ethan, I'd like some grapes. Could you 2 go wash some for me, please? When her grandmother asked, neither of us would refuse. She picked up the fruit basket from the nightstand, and we left the room one after the other. But just as we stepped out the door, she grabbed my hand. I was surprised. She had actually initiated contact. But a second later, her cold words hit me. You need to stop coming to see my grandmother. I sold myself to you, that's true, but my grandmother is not part of the deal. That one short sentence made my earlier surprise feel like a complete joke. A bitter feeling rose in my chest. In the past, I would have rushed to explain that she was always so busy, and her grandmother was old and lonely, that I had no ulterior motives and just wanted to keep her company. But now, I just lowered my head and said calmly, okay. Without waiting for her response, I headed straight for the washroom, not waiting to walk with her like I always used to. Watching me walk away, Chloe felt a strange sense of unease. Since yesterday, everything about my behavior seemed different. After washing the fruit, Chloe and I went back to the room. We chatted for a little while longer before everyone prepared to leave. We had just stepped out of the hospital when Liam spoke up. Chloe, Mr. Anderson, it's almost dinner time. Why don't we all grab a bite to eat? Chloe would never refuse a suggestion from Liam. As for me, perhaps to prevent me from throwing a fit and giving Liam a hard time, she accepted on my behalf before I could even open my mouth. At the restaurant, we followed the waiter to a private room, and she took the menu and ordered with ease. But it wasn't until all the food arrived that I realized she had ordered all of Liam's favorites. I guess that's the difference between love and not loving someone. Even though I had once made her memorize all my preferences, one was done out of obligation, the other out of care. The difference was night and day. Fortunately, I had expected this, so I wasn't too disappointed. I just ate in silence, not saying a word. Halfway through the meal, a cell phone started ringing urgently in the room. Chloe took her phone and stepped out. My eyes, however, froze for a second on the pinky ring Liam was wearing. Where did you get that ring? Liam glanced at the ring on his pinky, smiling innocently as he answered, This? Oh, Chloe gave it to me. I said I liked it, so she gave it to me. As soon as he said that, my face fell. That ring was a gift I had given to Chloe on our anniversary, one I had spent ages carving myself, cutting up my hands in the process. Inside the band, I had engraved a small line of text, I will always love Chloe. I had poured my heart out to her, offered her all my love, and she had just casually given it away to Liam without a second thought. A nameless rage boiled inside me, but then, the plot from the novel flashed through my mind. Chloe's heart had always belonged to Liam. Of course she wouldn't care about a gift from me. If I made a scene about it now, wouldn't that just make Chloe hate me even more? It was like a bucket of cold water had been dumped on my head. I instantly calmed down, composed myself, and offered a small smile. It looks good. It suits you. Liam had clearly been waiting for me to lose my temper, but when I calmly let it go, a flicker of surprise crossed his face. He gritted his teeth, then suddenly stood up and eagerly ladled a bowl of soup, offering it to me. Mr. Anderson, don't just eat rice. This seafood soup is excellent, you should try some. I'm allergic to seafood and was about to refuse, but then I saw that instead of handing me the bowl, Liam twisted his wrist, and it crashed to the floor. His eyes welled up with tears, red-rimmed and full of hurt, looking like he was on the verge of sobbing. Before I could even process what Liam was doing, Chloe rushed past me like a blur, shielding him behind her. Then, her icy glare fixed on me. Ethan, what do you think you're doing? Liam, his eyes red, stood behind her and added fuel to the fire. Chloe, it's my fault. I must have made Ethan angry. That's why he threw the soup at me. I just got a little burned. It's nothing. Please don't blame him. I didn't do it. Hearing him twist the truth, My eyes went wide as I tried to explain, but she wouldn't listen. She shot me a cold look and said, "Ethan, you're being completely unreasonable." Then, without another word, she pulled Liam to his feet and walked out. Watching her cold, retreating back and Liam's triumphant, taunting look, I stood frozen as my heart sank into a pit of despair. What I didn't expect was that over the next few days, Liam, having discovered how effective this tactic was, seemed to get addicted to framing me. One day he'd claim I got him fired, the next he'd say I had the entire industry blacklist him. He even accused me of hiring people to throw paint on his door, making his life a living hell. Chloe put up with it for as long as she could, but finally, she snapped. The moment she got home, she grabbed me. "Ethan, if you have a problem, take it out on me. Why are you going after Liam?" In the 5 years we'd been together, Chloe had always been ice cold toward me. This was the first time I'd ever seen her show so much emotion, and it was all for Liam. "I'm not going after him. I didn't do any of those things." I tried my best to explain, but she still looked at me with total disbelief. "If it wasn't you, then who was it? You're the kind of person who buys a girlfriend. Is there anything you wouldn't do? Don't let it happen again. I've given you everything, so why can't you just leave the people in my life alone?" With that, her eyes filled with disappointment, she turned and went straight to the guest room, unwilling to say another word to me. I watched her leave, fighting to suppress the ache in my chest. In her mind, I would always be the one she couldn't trust. But beyond the sadness, I felt a growing sense of panic. I only had a few days left before I was supposed to disappear. If this kept up, I was afraid Chloe would kill me before I even had the chance to fake my own death. I lay in bed, tossing and turning for half the night, until I finally came up with a solution. That night, I drove to Liam's place. The first words out of my mouth were, "Liam, let's call a truce. From now on, I'm going to help you get together with Chloe." Hearing this, Liam's eyes widened in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" Liam knew better than anyone how much I liked Chloe. Why else would I have willingly paid her grandmother's medical bills for 5 years? Why else would I have continued to follow her around, despite her rejecting me with a cold shoulder time and time again? And now here I was, offering to set him up with her. Hearing his skepticism, I shook my head. "I'm not kidding. I'm being completely sincere about this truce. You don't have to waste your energy framing me anymore. I don't have much time left. I'll be out of Chloe's life soon, so you don't need to see me as a rival." My expression was genuine, but Liam still didn't believe me, suspecting it was some kind of trap. I didn't care if he believed me or not. My actions would speak for themselves. The next day, as Chloe was about to head out, I stopped her and handed her a ticket to Universal Studios. "I bought 2 tickets for tonight. Come with me. I'm busy with my project," she began, her expression cold, but I cut her off before she could refuse. Our deal stated that besides sleeping with me, you couldn't refuse any of my other requests. That one sentence shut down any refusal she might have had. She took the ticket with a frown, her steps quickening as she walked away. As her figure disappeared from view, I picked up my phone, found Liam's number, and called him. He answered almost immediately. We skipped the pleasantries and I got straight to the point. "Did you get the ticket I sent over?" I gave the other one to Chloe. "Make sure you look good tonight and use the time to get closer to her." Liam was stunned that I was actually serious about setting him up with Chloe. He mumbled a skeptical, "Uh-huh," and just as I was about to hang up, he suddenly asked, "Why are you helping me?" The question came through the phone. I paused for a moment but ultimately didn't answer. "You don't need to know. Just stick to our deal. I'll help you with her, and you stop trying to frame me." After I hung up, I stared at the dark screen of my phone, lost in thought. Liam's question echoed in my mind. Why are you helping me? I wasn't helping Liam. I was helping myself. Besides, the person Chloe truly loved was Liam. I was just accelerating the original plot, and in doing so, giving myself a chance to survive. As night fell, I got a message from Liam. It was a photo of the 2 of them. In the picture, Liam was looking at the camera, but Chloe was looking at Liam, her eyes filled with a tenderness and sweetness I had never seen when she was with me. We'd been together for 5 years, and I had asked for a photo with her countless times, but her answer was always, "I don't like having my picture taken." Apparently, that principle didn't apply when she was with someone she actually liked. I kept scrolling through the pictures until one in the middle caught my eye. The background was a restaurant. In front of her was a plate of peeled shrimp and a large pile of shells. I thought back on all the years we'd been together. Every time we had shrimp, I was the one who peeled them for her and put them in her bowl. She had never once done it for me. Staring at this display of affection I had once dreamed of, I was silent for a long time before finally typing out a message. Nice. You two look good together. Liam had assumed I had some ulterior motive and had sent the photos to provoke me, hoping I'd reveal my true intentions. But my simple, congratulatory message seemed to make him realize he couldn't figure me out at all. The typing indicator in our iMessage chat appeared and disappeared for a long time. Liam must have rewritten his message a dozen times before finally sending, "Were you serious yesterday? You're really going to help me get with Chloe?" This time, my reply was quick, just one word, "Yes. From now on, Chloe is all yours." I had expected Chloe to be happy when she got home, but when she walked in, her expression was as icy as ever, her voice laced with a strange anger. "Ethan, what was that all about today? What are you trying to pull?" I paused, confused by her attitude, but I still explained. "Are you talking about the ticket? I had something come up, so I gave it to Liam." Then I asked eagerly, "Did you two have fun? Did you ride the Ferris wheel? Go through the haunted house? If you didn't get to do everything, I have 2 more tickets. You two can go again tomorrow." Chloe couldn't figure out what I was up to. She just stared at me for a long time. I met her gaze with a look of pure sincerity, as if I truly just couldn't make it and had given the ticket to them as a last resort. After a long moment, she was the one to break the stare down, turning and heading straight for her room. With this first success, I doubled down, continuing to create opportunities for them. For instance, I'd invite her to a romantic restaurant, and just as we sat down, Liam would coincidentally appear. "Chloe, what a surprise!" Before she could respond, a waiter would conveniently approach. "Sir, ma'am, it's our anniversary celebration. You're our 52nd couple of the evening, so we'd like to offer you a complimentary pair of couple's rings and a photo." The moment the waiter finished, I would suddenly stand up. "I'm not feeling well. I think I'm going to head home." Seeing me get up to leave, Chloe would quickly stand to follow. But then I'd turn back as if I'd just remembered something. "It's a nice offer. It'd be a shame to waste it. Chloe, why don't you and Liam do it?" Without waiting for a response, I'd hurry out of the restaurant and drive off, leaving a stunned Chloe with an ecstatic Liam, who would be pulling her toward the rings and the camera. Or there was the college reunion I insisted on dragging her to, where we discovered Liam was also there. At the end of the night, I'd push Liam toward her. "Why don't you drive him home? I'll grab a cab. And hey, don't rush back. He's had a lot to drink. You should probably stay and look after him." Then I'd press the car keys into her hand and walk off to hail a cab before she could argue. After a few incidents like this, Chloe finally realized something was up. She kept running into Liam at all sorts of places and times, and every single time, I would make an excuse to leave them alone together, as if I was actively pushing her toward him. Chloe came home drunk from a work event. Seeing me apparently asleep in bed, she went straight to the bathroom without a word. The moment I heard the shower start, my eyes snapped open. I glanced at the closed bathroom door, then quickly pulled out my phone and found a number. "Get over to my house. Now." 20 minutes later, Liam was knocking on the front door. I quietly let him in and handed him a pair of silk pajamas I'd found. "Change into these and get in the master bed." Liam listened to my instructions, glanced at the pajamas and seemed to understand. His heart started pounding, feeling like it would burst from his chest. With another push from me, he snapped out of it, hurried upstairs, changed, and got into bed. Liam had only been lying there for a moment when the bathroom door swung open. Chloe walked out, wrapped only in a towel, drying her hair. She looked up, and her eyes fell on the figure in the bed. Perhaps remembering it had been a while since we'd fulfilled our part of the deal, she walked over and naturally wrapped her arms around the person from behind, her voice husky with drink. "My period's over." Before Liam could even process what she meant, he felt the mattress dip behind him, hot breath on his neck, and a soft hand on his waist. Her searing body heat made him shudder, and his breathing grew ragged. He heard a soft laugh from behind him as a trail of kisses landed on his neck and behind his ear. Liam couldn't handle it. A muffled groan escaped his lips. At that single sound, Chloe froze. She pulled back abruptly, her voice filled with utter disbelief. Downstairs in the living room, Chloe sat on the sofa with Liam beside her, his face a mask of humiliation. Her face was dark as thunder as she stared at me. What the hell is going on? I hadn't expected her to find out so quickly. I felt a pang of guilt but tried to cover with an excuse. Liam's power went out, so I told him he could crash here for the night. Then why was he in the master bedroom? Chloe clearly didn't buy it and pressed on. I hesitated before answering. The guest room wasn't made up. I figured since it was just for one night, he could sleep in there. Her eyes blazed with fury, her chest rising and falling rapidly. She was furious. She didn't believe my explanation, But the most important thing right now was getting Liam home. She suppressed her rage, said nothing more, and simply pulled Liam out the door. By the time Chloe got back, I was already in my room. Now that it was just the two of us, she no longer held back her anger. Chloe had known something was off with me for a while, and now, she finally couldn't take it anymore. "Ethan, what the hell are you trying to do? What is it now? Have you come up with some new way to torture us?" Her blunt words stunned me. I never imagined that's what she thought. It felt like a heavy blow to my chest, a dull, aching pain. "I just thought I would." The words slipped out, but thankfully I caught myself before I said the rest. Her gaze was intense as she pressed. "You would what? Say it." After a long silence, I finally spoke, but I didn't answer her question. "I'm sorry. I thought you'd like it." My apology was the last straw, completely igniting her fury. "You're always so damn arrogant." She spat the words out coldly, then turned and stormed out of the room. Watching her leave, I started to understand. It made sense. She was still technically with me, and given her principles, she wouldn't do anything with Liam, no matter how much she liked him. Luckily, in 3 days this would all be over. With my departure date just around the corner, I gathered everything in the house that had to do with Chloe. I threw some things out and burned the rest, clearing it all away. From the photos I'd collected of her at college debates to the matching mugs, slippers, and pajamas I'd bought for us, even the good luck charm I'd gotten for her. Every single item was proof of my love for Chloe. The last things I burned were my love letters to her. I tossed them into the fire, one by one, my mind drifting back in time. In the beginning, I had tried to win her over the normal way. I spent 3 whole months writing her 99 love letters. But every single one of them was rejected. It was only later, when I saw her struggling with the medical bills, that I came up with our arrangement. It was a way for her to accept the help, and for me to get what I wanted. Maybe I was wrong. You can't buy true love. The novel had said it too. The heroine, Chloe, only loved her hero, Liam. With that thought, I let go of any lingering attachment and tossed the last letter into the flames. The front door suddenly opened. Chloe was home. Her eyes immediately fell on the colorful envelopes I was feeding to the fire. She had never read what was inside, but she recognized the envelopes instantly. They were the love letters I had given her, the ones she had rejected. She felt her heart skip a beat, and the question tumbled out before she could think. "What are you doing?" I looked at her stunned face through the flickering flames, feeling a bit confused. But after a moment, I answered her. "Burning things. They're useless now, so I'm getting rid of them." Chloe felt a sense of panic. She could feel that I had been changing lately, doing all these strange things. She didn't want to argue, but the words came out sharp anyway. "Right? You got what you wanted, so of course these things are useless now." Chloe had mocked me like this many times before, and it always hurt. But this time, I felt nothing but a strange sense of calm. "It will all be over soon." My cryptic comment just left Chloe feeling confused, wondering what I was planning now. She didn't linger or ask about what I was burning. She just went straight upstairs to her office. I sat there, perfectly still, and watched until the flames had consumed the very last letter, turning it to ash. With nothing left to burn, the fire could no longer rage, and it finally died out. "Chloe, from now on, forget this humiliating memory. Forget me, the villain. Let's both start over, you and I." The next morning, as Chloe was about to leave, I stopped her. "Tomorrow is our 5th anniversary. I booked a yacht. Come with me to watch the sunset over the ocean." She seemed annoyed but didn't refuse, just gave a cold grunt of acknowledgement and left. Maybe because I was looking forward to it, the day flew by, and soon it was time. I took Chloe to the yacht I had chartered. The view from the yacht was incredible. The last rays of the setting sun cast a warm, orange glow over the water and the deck, painting a breathtaking picture where the sea met the sky. Chloe stared at the scene, a strange emotion flickering in her eyes. But a moment later, the rare tranquility was shattered by an urgent ringing. When I turned to look at her, she was already on her phone, deep in a work conversation. I knew she was busy with her project. In just a few hours, it was set to launch. Once it launched, it would be a massive success, the turning point of her life. "Chloe, if you were rich, what would you do?" By the time I spoke, Chloe had already ended her call. Hearing my random question, she just answered flatly, "Whatever I want." She said it without any expression, as if it were just a casual remark. But as I looked at that face, which had never shown me a single ounce of warmth, I couldn't help but think, the first thing you'll do when you're rich is get rid of me. But Chloe, this time, I won't make you do the dirty work. On deck, waiters began serving dinner, and soon the table was laden with exquisite food. The sun was a fiery semicircle on the horizon as Chloe and I sat across from each other at the table. I stared at the beautiful meal with no appetite, and she looked at me as silent as ever. The silence between us was broken again by Chloe's phone ringing. The name Liam flashed on the screen. She hesitated for a second, then answered. The moment she answered, Liam's tearful voice came clearly through the phone. "Chloe, I've been in an accident. Can you come to the hospital?" The moment she heard this, Chloe's brow furrowed. She turned to look at me. I put down my fork. I heard, "Do you want to go?" She didn't hesitate. "We can celebrate our anniversary anytime. Liam needs me right now." I said nothing, just watched her calmly. Seeing my expression, her heart began to beat erratically for some reason. She had always been unnervingly calm, but for the first time, she felt a sense of losing control. She added, a rare concession, "I'll make the anniversary up to you next time." With that, she grabbed her phone and stood up. I watched her hurried, flustered figure disembark from the yacht, and I didn't try to stop her. A long time later, I whispered to the empty air, "Chloe, there is no next time for us." I watched the rest of the sunset alone, until the last sliver of light disappeared below the horizon. The lights on the yacht began to glow. A man boarded and walked directly over to me. "Mr. Anderson, everything is ready." Hearing his voice, I didn't turn around, but kept my gaze fixed on the horizon. "How am I going to die?" "You'll fall overboard. The news will break in an hour. Your body will be found by the police after floating at sea for 3 days, at which point your death will be confirmed." The man laid out the details of my death. I nodded, having no objections. With everything arranged, I turned and left the yacht. I took one last look at the city, then put on the hat and mask I had prepared, snapped my SIM card in half, and headed for the airport without a backward glance. "Chloe, this time, I'm delivering you to your hero myself. And as for me, the villain, I'm logging off from your world for good." It was 3 days later when Chloe returned to the house. She wore a smile for the first time in a long while. Liam's injuries were healing, and the project she had worked on for so long had become a massive hit upon its launch. She could finally enter the world of the elite on her own terms, no longer the broke student who had to sell herself to pay her grandmother's medical bills. In her pocket was the first check from her project's success. She planned to give it to me the moment she saw me. Once the debt between us was cleared, she could finally stand before me as an equal. But when Chloe pushed open the door, the house was empty and silent. I, who was usually waiting in the living room for her to come home, was nowhere to be found. A strange feeling washed over her, and for some reason, her heart felt hollow. Thinking back on my strange behavior recently, she felt a growing sense of unease. Was this just another one of my schemes to torture her? Unsure, she pulled out her phone to send me a message, but just then, a news alert popped up on her screen. "Ethan Anderson, only son of Austin's wealthiest family, reported missing. Body later discovered at sea. Police have confirmed the identity. Cause of death is still under investigation." The short headline struck Chloe like a bolt of lightning. She couldn't believe her eyes, but her hand seemed to move on its own, tapping on the news story. The photos released to the public were blurry, but she recognized the body instantly. Her eyes widened as she desperately searched for any detail to prove it wasn't me. But the more she looked, the more her heart sank. The body's build, the clothes, they were identical to what I had been wearing when she left. He was dead? No. She had to see for herself. Unless she saw the body with her own eyes, she would never believe he was gone. Chloe stumbled toward the door. Though it was only a few steps away, her legs gave out, and she nearly fell several times. She wanted to drive to the police station, but her hands were shaking so badly, she couldn't even get the key into the ignition. Left with no choice, she walked down the street and hailed a cab. The taxi pulled up to the police station, and for a moment, Chloe felt a wave of fear. She didn't know what she would do if the body inside was really mine. "Ma'am, we're here. Are you getting out?" The driver waited a moment, watching her expression shift in the rearview mirror. Given their destination, he figured she was turning herself in for some crime and sighed to himself. Such a nice-looking girl. How did it come to this? Chloe, oblivious to his thoughts, was jolted back to reality by his prodding. She pushed the door open and got out. Inside the station, she explained why she was there, and an officer led her to the morgue. When they arrived, she saw she wasn't the first one there. Mrs. Anderson's eyes were red and swollen, as if she had been crying for hours. Mr. Anderson was more composed, but his eyes were rimmed with red as well. When they saw her approach, their expressions became complicated. They had read my letter. They knew I had only faked my death. but they couldn't help but feel a surge of resentment toward Chloe. If it weren't for her, their Ethan would never have had to go to such extreme lengths. And for Chloe, the moment she saw them, her heart plummeted. Suddenly, she couldn't bring herself to take another step, couldn't bear to look at the body that lay just a few feet away. My parents took my body to be cremated, but on the way, Chloe intercepted them and took the urn. At first, my parents tried to get it back, but she refused to let it go. Every argument ended with her declaring, "You can have this urn over my dead body." Chloe moved out of the house we had shared. It was only while packing that she realized everything related to our time together was gone. Thinking back on my strange behavior during those last days, she became convinced that my death, which the police had ruled an accident, was no accident at all. It was premeditated. That's why he had pushed her away, why he had tried to push her toward Liam, why he had erased every trace of their shared memories. In her bedroom, Chloe clutched the urn, surrounded by a floor littered with empty wine bottles. Her eyes were filled with endless grief, regret, and a touch of self-loathing. He had been so obvious about it from the start. How could she have been so blind? She took another swig of liquor, the burning sensation spreading through her body. She ran her fingers over the urn, closed her eyes, and his smiling face appeared in her mind. Ethan. She was lost in her own world when the bedroom door was suddenly thrown open. Light flooded the dark room, and the sudden brightness made her squint. She looked up. The person standing in the doorway saw the state of the room and rushed in, panicked. Weaving through the bottles, he ran to her side, trying to take the urn from her and help her to her feet. "Chloe!" His cry made her realize who it was. Her body reacted instinctively, turning to shield the urn from his grasp, clutching it tightly. The wariness in her eyes stung Liam, but seeing her gaunt face and bloodshot eyes, his voice softened. "Chloe, you can't go on like this. You're gonna make yourself sick. Please put the box down. Let's go to the hospital, okay?" Hearing his voice, her gaze shifted, and she finally looked directly at Liam. Her voice was calm, but he could hear the accusation in it. "You knew, didn't you? You knew Ethan had decided to leave, and you kept it from me." Liam was taken aback by her question. It took him a moment to process what she was asking, and then the color drained from his face. He looked hurt, as if to say, "How could you think that of me? Chloe, I swear, I didn't know anything. Ethan came to me himself back then. He said he wanted to work with me." "Work with you? On what?" Chloe seized on the word, her sharp gaze fixed on Liam. He had never seen that look in her eyes before. His grip on her arm loosened without him realizing it. Finally, under her murderous glare, he confessed everything. As he finished, he pleaded, "Chloe, I only did it because I love you so much, but I swear, I never did anything to him after that. Chloe, your relationship was forced from the start. You didn't even like him. Now that he's dead, you're finally free. Shouldn't you be happy?" The words were barely out of his mouth when her hand shot out and closed around his throat. "Who told you I didn't love him?" Liam was terrified, his eyes turning red as tears welled up. Large drops soon rolled down his cheeks, splashing onto her hand. The hot tears made her flinch, and she quickly pulled her hand away. After a long moment, she turned away, hiding the coldness in her eyes. "Go. I don't want to see you again." Chloe didn't understand why seeing him cry made her own heart ache. But she knew one thing for sure. She didn't love him. Otherwise, she never would have been able to hurt him like that. And yet, just as she had always lost her head over him, ignoring Ethan for his sake time and time again, just as she hadn't always meant to be so harsh with Ethan, but the words would twist themselves on the way out of her mouth. She couldn't understand her own heart, couldn't control her own words and actions. It wasn't until he died that the fog over her heart finally lifted. She could finally see her own feelings clearly, which only made her past actions even more incomprehensible. In that moment, a surreal, nightmarish feeling spread through her. 5 years later, in a quiet bar in a town in Canada, far from the city bustle, when my parents, worried once again that I was struggling alone in a foreign country, wired me another large sum of money, I couldn't resist calling them. "Mom, Dad, how many times do I have to tell you? I'm doing fine here. You don't need to worry, and you don't need to keep sending me money." I sighed. 5 years ago, I had come here and changed my name to Arthur Graham. My parents, worried I couldn't make it on my own, had spent the last 5 years doing little else but wiring me money. I used the money to open a small bar near the local university. The clientele was steady. A new batch of students replaced the old ones every year. Life had been peaceful these past few years, but the more frequently they sent money, the more uneasy I became. Even though I was in Canada, I still kept up with the news from back home. Because of that, I knew what had happened over the past 5 years. Grandma Sullivan had passed away the day before Chloe became one of Austin's new business titans. I regretted not being there to say goodbye, but as much as I cared for her, I valued my own life more. Chloe was truly brilliant, just as the novel had described. That was why I had tried to minimize contact with my parents over the past 5 years. I was afraid that if we were in touch too often, she might notice something was off. If the plot reset, all my efforts over the last 5 years would be for nothing. But for some reason, things weren't following the plot. By now, she should have confessed her feelings to Liam and started a relationship with him. But in reality, she had been single for 5 years. I'd heard she kept my urn with her at all times. People who didn't know the story praised her devotion, but I always suspected she had some other motive for keeping it. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. I resolved to cut back on my contact with home even more. Suddenly, a tap on the bar behind me made me turn around, and I found myself looking into a pair of deep, familiar eyes. "Bartender, I'll have a margarita." That voice, so familiar after all this time, and that face, one I knew so well I could picture it with my eyes closed after thousands of days and nights together. My heart skipped a beat, and I froze. "Sir." Chloe raised an eyebrow and called out again, a little louder this time. I quickly ended the call with my parents, kicking myself internally. I knew it. With all the contact back home, someone as smart as her was bound to figure out I wasn't dead. I just never expected her to find me so quickly, catching me completely off guard. I forced myself to look calm, pointed to the closed sign hanging on a nearby partition, and lowered my voice. "Sorry, we're closed today." Chloe chuckled, picked up the sign, and flipped it around to show me the open side. Her eyes danced with amusement. If I'm not mistaken, the closed side is supposed to face the customers. I froze, my eyes following her hand to the sign. I realized I'd forgotten to flip it over. A flush of embarrassment crept up my face. I snatched the sign from her and hung it back up, this time with the closed side facing out. "There. Now we are. Ma'am, the bar is closed today. If you're looking for a drink, you'll have to find another place." Having made it clear she should leave, I went back to cleaning, but the woman at the bar didn't move. Just as I was debating whether to say something else, she spoke first. "Sir, have we met before?" I froze, my hands stopping mid-motion. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, so loud I thought she could hear it. She had seen my face, but she wasn't jumping to conclusions, probably because she had seen Ethan's body. She couldn't be sure if I was really him or just some stranger who looked like him. That being the case, I had to stay calm to avoid arousing her suspicions further. With that in mind, I kept my head down and, after a long pause, tried to play it off. "Ma'am, has anyone ever told you that's a really cheesy pickup line?" "No, I've never hit on anyone before." Chloe's answer was immediate and certain, as if she was desperate to prove something. I was so focused on getting her to leave that I missed the undertone in her words, just continuing to try and usher her out. Finally, she relented slightly. "Well, will you be open tomorrow?" Seeing her back off, I quietly breathed a sigh of relief. I hesitated. If I avoided her too obviously, she'd know something was up. But if I didn't, with a face this similar to my old one, and her having tracked me all the way here, her suspicions would only grow. After a moment's thought, I chose a middle ground. "Depends on my mood. I might not open." It was a clear brush off, but to Chloe, it sounded like a challenge. She continued, "So you mean if you have enough customers, you'll open?" Hearing that, I couldn't hold back any longer. I shot her a quick glance before looking down again. "Ma'am, if you really want a drink, there are plenty of other bars in the area. You don't have to wait around here." What in the world happened to her over the last 5 years? Why had Chloe become so persistent? I hid my surprise and didn't dare ask, but she just stood there, waiting for my answer. Finally, I gave a reluctant nod, and she left with a triumphant smile. I had no idea what she was trying to pull. Once she was gone, I took out my phone and called my parents. They answered right away. "Ethan, what's wrong? Is everything okay?" Chloe found me. "Mom, Dad, what has been going on these past few years? I feel like she's changed so much." I rubbed my temples, a headache already forming. My parents were silent for a moment before they hesitantly asked me again why I had decided to fake my death all those years ago. After 5 years, with them asking again, I decided not to hide it anymore. I told them everything about the awakening, framing it as a vivid dream. From the very beginning, my parents had disapproved of our relationship. It wasn't because Chloe was poor or because they thought she wasn't good enough for me. It was because, back then, Chloe didn't love me. They knew my forcing the issue would only lead to heartbreak, and as their son, whom they had raised with so much care. They couldn't bear to watch me suffer, knowing how it would end. But I was too stubborn back then. I was set on Chloe and refused to give up, determined to see it through to the bitter end. And in the end, I did hit that wall, and I realized my parents had been right all along. Now, however, their attitude had shifted. Ethan, we've watched her over these years, seen everything she's gone through to get where she is. We can tell she loves you. If it was all just a dream, why don't you come home? My mother had barely finished when my father added, "She's right, Ethan. And besides, you said she found you, didn't you? It's been 5 years. Come home. We'll face whatever comes together, okay?" In the end, I didn't agree. A side character awakening sounded absurd. I had expected my parents not to believe me. As for Chloe loving me, I didn't believe that either. We were together for 5 years. If I had felt even a single shred of love from her during that time, I might not have chosen to fake my death. And now, just because she wasn't with her destined hero and had instead kept my ashes, they thought she loved me. But who was to say she hadn't just been temporarily knocked off course by my death? Who was to say she wouldn't eventually get back on her destined path? I tossed and turned all night, unable to sleep. I only managed to drift off into a restless sleep as the sun came up. When I woke up again, it was already afternoon. For some reason, I had slept incredibly deeply, so deeply that my memories felt jumbled, as if I had just woken from a long dream, and I felt disoriented. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time before my memories finally fell back into place. I quickly got dressed and rushed to the bar. Just as I'd expected, Chloe was already waiting outside. But she wasn't alone. A group of my old regulars was waiting with her. I had told them a few days ago that I might be closed for a bit, so I hadn't expected any of them to show up, maybe 1 or 2 at most. But here they were, all of them, gathered in groups around her. I didn't have to guess to know that Chloe had called them all here. Chloe saw me approaching, and a smile finally broke through her somber expression. She stepped forward, her tone laced with meaning. "So, you came after all." The moment I saw her, I froze. The memories I had just managed to sort out dissolved into chaos again. A flicker of confusion crossed my face, but a second later, it was gone. After greeting the other customers, I took out my keys and unlocked the door. As I pushed the door open and stepped inside, she followed right behind me, and a wave of irritation washed over me. I had already left, made space for her and her childhood sweetheart. Why wasn't she back home with Liam? What was she doing here? The bar quickly filled up. As I mixed drinks, I felt a strange sense of detachment from my own recent actions and emotions. It was strange. Ever since Chloe showed up, my memories had started to feel jumbled. For a moment, I had the bizarre feeling that I wasn't myself anymore. Thankfully, the feeling didn't last long. But I knew, without a doubt, the source of all this turmoil. Chloe sat down at the bar and ordered a margarita, the same as the day before. A margarita is easy enough to make. I quickly mixed it and placed it in front of her. "Here you go, ma'am." She took the glass but didn't drink, just stared straight at me. "My name is Chloe Sullivan," she said suddenly. "All right, Miss Sullivan." I kept my expression neutral, as if we were complete strangers, and just nodded. My reaction, however, seemed to be wearing on her patience. Before Chloe came to Canada, she had already done her research on me. She had noticed something was off with the Anderson family about a month ago. Other than that first day at the morgue, she had never seen the true heartbreak of parents who had lost their only son. At first, she assumed they were just hiding their grief. But then she discovered a series of large, regular overseas wire transfers from the Anderson family accounts, stretching back 5 years. After some digging, she realized the Anderson family was hiding a massive secret. Ethan Anderson, Arthur Graham, the same build, roughly the same age. One disappears, and the other suddenly appears. 1 or 2 similarities could be a coincidence, but this many? It pointed to the most impossible conclusion. She spoke, her voice firm with conviction. "Ethan, how long are you going to keep hiding?" I looked up at her, my expression one of confusion. "Miss Sullivan, I think you have me mistaken for someone else. My name is Arthur Graham. You can call me Arthur." I was determined to deny I was Ethan Anderson. What could she do about it? That identity had been officially declared dead 5 years ago. The only person who existed now was me, Arthur. Chloe hadn't expected this reaction, and she let out a short, angry laugh. Arthur Graham, an orphan, came to Canada 5 years ago to stay with a relative. But in all that time, no one has ever seen this supposed relative. In fact, there's no record of this relative even existing. And yet, for the past 5 years, you've been receiving large, semi-annual payments into your account from the wealthiest family in Austin, the Andersons. Mr. Graham, Can you explain that? Listening to her lay out the facts, I swallowed hard. How had she investigated me so thoroughly? She had never put this much effort into understanding me when we were together. I faked my death and created a new identity to get away, and yet she had investigated that new identity down to the last detail. I was furious, and my tone turned sharp. Look, lady, I don't know you and you don't know me. What right do you have to investigate me? Why I came to Canada and who I associate with is none of your business. My words left Chloe speechless. After a pause, she found another angle. I was once indebted to the Anderson family. Your activities are suspicious, and you've taken a lot of money from them. I have every right to suspect you're up to no good. She thought that would make me crack, but I just gave her a quizzical look and shot back. Even if I were up to no good, that would be a matter for the Anderson family, wouldn't it? It has nothing to do with you. Who are you to be questioning me? A friend of Mr. and Mrs. Anderson? Or the girl their dead son used to pay for? The words, the girl he used to pay for, struck a nerve, and Chloe's eyes instantly reddened. Her lips tightened into a thin line. She gave me one last, deep look, then turned and walked away without another word. A heavy aura surrounded her, and for some reason, as I watched her walk away, I saw a profound loneliness in her silhouette. I opened my mouth, knowing I had been too harsh, but in the end, I didn't call her back. After all, wasn't that how she had always seen our relationship for those 5 years? I paid the money and she sold herself. She had said as much herself countless times. Why was she acting so pitiful now, trying to get my sympathy? But I also knew that now that she had found me, she wouldn't give up after just one setback. It looked like if I wanted any peace, I'd have to move. It was a shame about the bar. It had been my life for 5 years, and now Chloe's arrival had ruined it. I got up and went to the door. Worried that Chloe might still be waiting outside, I decided not to go home. I locked the front door of the bar and headed upstairs to my apartment. As I lay in bed, I still couldn't figure it out. What was Chloe trying to accomplish? Was it just to get revenge on me for our original arrangement? But I had compensated her for that, hadn't I? Besides, she had agreed to it. It was supposed to be a mutually beneficial arrangement. Even if she hated me, everything should have been settled the moment I died. Why was she chasing me like this? I couldn't make sense of it, so I decided to stop trying and just fell asleep. Outside the bar, just as I'd suspected, Chloe hadn't left. The engine was off. She was slumped over the steering wheel, a bitter feeling welling up inside her. The girl he used to pay for, was that really all she had ever been to him? The next day, I listed the bar for sale. I didn't even leave a single piece of equipment behind. As luck would have it, the new owner also planned to open a bar, so I just gave him everything. It all happened so fast that Chloe was stunned. She hadn't even seen me leave. But this only made her more certain of what she already suspected. I was Ethan Anderson. I had planned to leave Canada and move to another country, but I never expected Chloe to corner me at the airport. If you're not Ethan, then why are you running? To this day, Chloe still didn't understand why I had faked my death and disappeared. Faced with her question, a flicker of confusion crossed my eyes. Running? Why would I be running? What am I running from? My thoughts became a jumbled mess, as if my memories were being shuffled and rearranged. A moment later, I broke out in a cold sweat, and the color drained from my lips. The sudden change startled Chloe, her heart pounding in her chest. Seeing my legs give out, she rushed to catch me. Ethan, don't be scared. I'm taking you to the hospital. Just as she said it, my breathing steadied. I shook my head. I want to go home. Seeing that I had recovered, Chloe finally let out a breath of relief. But when I said I wanted to go home, she looked lost, unsure of which home I meant. I saw her confusion, sighed, and walked over to the ticket counter to buy a ticket for the next flight back to the States. Seeing this, Chloe bought a ticket as well. Why did you come looking for me? Once we were on the plane home, I finally gave up trying to hide who I was. It was obvious she already knew. But there was another, more important reason I had suddenly decided to return. Ever since Chloe had reappeared, my memories had been secretly altered. I was afraid that eventually, I would forget my real name was Ethan Anderson. I was afraid I would forget my past, forget my parents. Chloe looked at me, ignoring my question and instead asking the one that had been plaguing her since she found out I was alive. Why did you choose to leave like that? I asked you first. You answer. I rubbed my temples. Her persistence was making my head throb. After a long silence, Chloe finally broke. I don't know. I just wanted to see you again. I wanted to see if you were happier without me, if that was why you suddenly abandoned me. Because I couldn't bear living without you. Her confession was buried under layers of silence, and in the end, Only those few words escaped. Chloe froze. For some reason, that feeling of being controlled washed over her again. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I could hear the quiet chatter of the other passengers around us, so I knew my hearing was fine. And yet, as Chloe's lips moved in front of me, I couldn't hear a single sound. In that instant, I remembered my altered memories, and with a flash of insight, I understood the real reason for everything. The novel world was real, and we were all forced to follow our designated paths. As the side character, my fate was death. That's why nothing happened to me when I left as Arthur Graham. But Ethan Anderson was already dead. So when Chloe found me and tried to make me admit I was him, my memories would become jumbled. I would slowly forget who I really was and start to believe I was this new person. The heroine, Chloe, was destined to be with the hero. That meant she couldn't fall in love with anyone else. And even if she did, she would be forcibly corrected. So I could go home, but there would never be a future for us. Because in Chloe's world, I could only ever be a dead man. When the plane landed, I didn't stop or even glance back at Chloe, who stood frozen in place. Chloe wanted to run after me, but her legs felt like they were filled with lead, rooting her to the spot. All she could do was watch as my back grew smaller and smaller, finally disappearing into the crowd. Then, Liam appeared, waving to her from across the terminal. "Chloe, I'm here to pick you up. Did you bring me anything back from your business trip?" Chloe felt a surge of unease seeing Liam, whom she had been avoiding for so long, suddenly appear. Hearing him call her trip business, and so casually ask for a gift only intensified that feeling of wrongness. This version of Liam, the cheerful, carefree one, hadn't existed since 5 years ago, when she found out he had framed me and told him to get lost. It was like a shattered plate that had been mysteriously put back together, perfectly whole, as if it had never been broken. She didn't know what was happening, but in that moment, she had only one thought: she would not be a puppet. As Liam got closer, the invisible force holding her legs in place began to release its grip. She started walking toward him, a new coldness in her eyes. She thought she finally understood why I had left so abruptly. And now, she realized she might have to try something similar herself. Liam's incessant chatter buzzed in her ear, giving her a headache. Suddenly, she stopped and turned to him, her voice devoid of all warmth. "Shut up. Can you just be quiet? You're so loud." His steps faltered, taken aback by her sudden harshness. A hurt expression crossed his face, but his tone was still concerned. "Chloe, what's wrong? Are you just tired? Let's get you home." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. He tried to make conversation, but she ignored him completely. Outside the airport, a waiting driver opened the car door. The moment she got in, she closed her eyes, pointedly ignoring Liam as he tried to speak to her. She didn't see the hurt look on his face, nor did she see the venomous resentment hidden beneath it. It was all Ethan's fault. The man couldn't even stay dead and leave them in peace. Ever since Ethan's death, Chloe had been cold and distant with him. Before that, she had never pushed him away. Before that, he could have sworn she had feelings for him. He had actually believed Ethan was trying to help him, but now he saw it was all a ploy to make everyone miserable. But after the initial wave of resentment, Liam just felt helpless. He hated Ethan, but so what? The man was already dead. Ethan had become Chloe's untouchable first love, and there was nothing Liam could do about it. But he soon realized he was wrong. The car stopped in front of Chloe's house, but instead of going inside, she started walking in the opposite direction. Liam, surprised, quickly got out of the car and followed her. "Chloe, where are you going?" Chloe, walking ahead, didn't wait for him or answer his question. Liam could only hurry to keep up, but as they walked, he realized something was off. She was heading toward the Andersons' estate. But ever since Ethan's death, Chloe's relationship with the Andersons had soured completely. She hadn't set foot on their property since. She had just gotten back from her business trip. Why would she suddenly decide to go there now? Chloe's house and the Anderson estate were in opposite directions, but they weren't too far apart. It didn't take them long to arrive. I was already home, sitting in the living room with my parents, who were asking me all about my 5 years in Canada. I was patiently answering their questions when the doorbell rang. I glanced toward the door, confused. A maid went to answer it and hesitated for a moment when she saw who was there. But Chloe paid her no mind and pushed right past her. With Chloe inside, Liam wasn't about to be left behind and followed right after her. The maid hurried after them in a panic, but she couldn't stop the determined pair. The living room door flew open. I instinctively turned my head and my eyes met Chloe's and Liam's. "You're not dead." The moment he saw my face, Liam couldn't contain his shock and blurted it out. But his shock was quickly followed by a surge of rage. So this was his real plan all along? First, he offers to help me get with Chloe to placate me. Then he fakes his death to cement his place in her heart as a tragic hero. And then he picks the perfect moment to return and steal her away for good. Liam stared at me, the hatred in his eyes barely concealed. His blatant hostility didn't escape my parents' notice, and they both frowned. The breathless maid finally caught up and, seeing the scene in the living room, began apologizing profusely. "Sir, ma'am, they just forced their way in. We couldn't stop them." My mother waved a hand, dismissing her. The maid let out a breath of relief and quickly exited the room. The moment the door closed, I turned to them, my voice laced with annoyance. "Miss Sullivan, Mr. Carter, quite an entrance. To what do we owe the pleasure of you breaking into our home?" Chloe knew she was being rude, but she also knew that if she had waited to be announced, she might never have been allowed in to see me. She apologized first. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I just wanted to talk to you. That's all." After explaining herself, she remembered Liam, who had followed her in, and she rubbed her temples in irritation. She hadn't really noticed it before, but Liam was like glue. Everywhere she went, he was right there. She turned to him, a flicker of annoyance in her eyes. "Why are you following me? Don't you have anything better to do?" Pushed aside by her once again, Liam looked hurt. He just loved her so much. He was so afraid of losing her. But why wouldn't she even let him be near her? They had been childhood friends for years. Hadn't she always favored him before? But not wanting to make Chloe hate him even more, Liam took the initiative and left the living room. He didn't, however, leave the property. He paced aimlessly near the front door, planning to be the first person she saw when she was done talking. In the living room, my parents exchanged a look, then turned to face Chloe and me, who were locked in a silent standoff. Neither of us spoke. Finally, my father cleared his throat, breaking the tense silence. "We have some things to attend to, so we'll head upstairs. You two should sit down and talk things out. Don't just argue." Without waiting for a response, they stood up and went upstairs. Suddenly, we were the only two people left in the vast living room. After a long silence, Chloe finally spoke. "Ethan," but I cut her off before she could continue. "Just say what you have to say. I bought you, and you've always been cold to me. The contract is over, we're broken up. I don't think our relationship warrants that kind of familiarity. Besides, I'm supposed to be dead." Hearing the clear line I was drawing between us, Chloe felt a sharp pain in her chest, and a bitter taste filled her mouth. The words caught in her throat, but she finally managed to force them out. "Ethan, I was stubborn before. I didn't want to acknowledge a relationship that started so shamefully. It wasn't until I heard you were dead that I realized how stupid I had been. But Ethan, you have to believe me. I really do love you." Before she could finish, I cut her off. "You love me, and then what?" Having failed to get her to use my new name, I decided to just move on. Chloe looked at me, confused, not understanding my question. My face was a cold mask, my voice devoid of emotion. The Ethan Anderson who is entangled with Chloe Sullivan has only one ending: death. "Chloe, don't tell me you haven't noticed something is wrong." What happened on the plane was still fresh in my mind. Even if I didn't have my awakened memories, even if I didn't understand that my near collapse was due to my memories being scrambled, the moment she lost her voice was enough to prove to me that something was fundamentally wrong with this world. Chloe remembered that feeling she'd had before, that blatant sense of being controlled. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She had noticed it, but she refused to accept it. She loved someone, and she refused to be forced down a path that didn't include me. She started to say my name, but then she remembered what I'd said. The Ethan Anderson who is entangled with Chloe Sullivan has only one ending, and she forced herself to stop. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a new resolve. "Ethan, wait for me. I will find a way to come to you with nothing standing in our way. When that day comes, no one will be able to stop us." I watched her make her bold declaration, stunned into silence. No one could stop them. Could a day like that really exist? A day where we weren't controlled by the plot, where our memories weren't erased, where she wasn't forced to love someone else. I thought I had accepted my fate, but hearing her words, a small, uncontrollable flicker of hope ignited within me. I watched her turn and leave, then lowered my head, a sense of melancholy washing over me. "But Chloe, I've waited for you for so long, and I still can't be sure. Do you really love me? Or are you just mistaking obsession for love? Otherwise, why have I never once felt any love from you?" I muttered to myself. As Chloe walked out of the living room, Liam was walking back from the direction of the garage. The moment their eyes met, his breath caught in his throat. She didn't see anything, did she? As he thought this, Her gaze hardened, her eyes darting between him and the garage. She narrowed her eyes. What were you doing? Me? Nothing. I was just bored. So I was taking a walk. He shook his head and waved his hands dismissively, a guilty, awkward laugh on his face. He quickly changed the subject. Chloe, are you done talking with Ethan? It's getting late, we should be heading back. At the mention of my name, Liam hesitated. He had seen my body back then. Even though it had been bloated and disfigured from 3 days in the water, the face was burned into his memory. It had been me, he was sure of it. But if that was me, then who was the person he had just seen in the house? Couldn't be a ghost. The dead don't just come back to life. Chloe, didn't Ethan, 5 years ago? Then who was that just now? Chloe just shot him a look and started walking away from the house. When he caught up to her, she shot him a warning glance. He's not Ethan Anderson. He's the Andersons' adopted son, Arthur Graham. Liam, you'd better get rid of whatever little ideas you're cooking up. If anything happens to him because of you, it won't just be the Andersons you have to worry about. I won't let you get away with it either. And you know I mean it. Liam quickly shook his head, a placating smile on his face. Chloe, I would never do something like that. Chloe didn't say whether she believed him or not. She just kept walking. He struggled to keep up with her pace, a triumphant smirk playing on his lips. Adopted son, Arthur Graham? If he had any doubts before, they were gone now. He was certain. The name, the face, and the fact that he was now an Anderson son. Who would believe there wasn't something fishy going on? There were no coincidences in this world. He didn't know how Ethan had pulled it off, but it was clear now that 5 years ago, he had faked his death, and now he was back in Austin under a new name. If he had already decided to fake his death and leave, why come back? Why couldn't he have just stayed dead? Why did he have to come back and fight him for Chloe? But no matter who he was, or whether it was all just a coincidence, Liam could not let him get back together with Chloe. If he died, Chloe might be sad for a while, but time heals all wounds. Once he was the only one left by her side, she would eventually fall in love with him. He glanced back at the Anderson estate, a satisfied smile playing on his lips. So, Arthur Graham, you can just die. Once you're dead, this will all be over. At the Anderson estate, I refused to go back to being Ethan Anderson no matter what my parents said. Finally, they had no choice but to concede. Fine, if you don't want to, you don't have to. Ethan will hold a party in a little while to officially announce you as our adopted son. That should make things easier for you. I didn't object to the idea and nodded in agreement. After all, I couldn't just hide in the house forever. I needed an identity that would allow me to live my life out in the open. Chloe hadn't seen me since that day. She was busy trying to find a way to break free from the control of the plot. Soon, word got out that the Anderson family was hosting a welcome party for their newly adopted son. When she received the invitation my parents sent, she hesitated for only a moment before accepting. She wanted to see me even if it was just from afar. The party was to be held at the largest hotel in Austin. Nearly every prominent family had received an invitation, yet no one had ever heard of this mysterious adopted son of the Andersons. But judging by the scale of the event, it was clear the Andersons took this new son very seriously. This naturally piqued everyone's curiosity. They all wanted to see who this adopted son was, what his story was, that he could cause such a stir in the long-quiet Anderson family. On the day of the party, guests arrived early, all waiting for the man of the hour to make his appearance. The venue was beautifully decorated, but the hosts themselves were nowhere to be seen. At the party, guests mingled in small groups, drinking and gossiping about my parents. What's with the Andersons tonight? They invite us all here to meet their new adopted son, and then they don't even show up. I know, right? Usually, the hosts are the first to arrive. It's not like this is their first party. How could they make a mistake like this? In a corner, Chloe listened to the murmurs of the other guests. A sudden, violent twitch in her eyelid. A sense of unease washed over her. My parents and I were all missing. This was not normal. A terrible suspicion began to form in her mind. Some of the guests who were closer to our family were also starting to realize something was wrong. This isn't right. It's been too long. Not a single one of them is here. Do you think something happened? Maybe we should try calling them, see what's going on. Good idea. Let's call them. As one of them pulled out his phone to call my father, a news alert flashed across his screen. Major car accident on Spring Street this afternoon. 2 men and 1 woman seriously injured, rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. Accident investigation has determined the cause to be brake failure. Spring Street, isn't that the main road from the Anderson estate to the hotel? That, combined with the detail of 2 men and 1 woman, all but confirmed that the victims of the crash were the 3 missing members of the Anderson family. Chloe shot to her feet, all rational thought gone. She rushed out of the hotel, pulling out her phone and making a call. Find out which hospital the victims of that car crash were taken to. Now, the address came through just as Chloe was getting into her car. She glanced down at the address and, without a second's hesitation, floored it, racing toward the hospital. 10 minutes later, Austin General Hospital. Chloe quickly got their room number from the front desk and headed straight upstairs. The 3 of them were just out of surgery and still unconscious, but thankfully, their injuries weren't life-threatening. Chloe only breathed a sigh of relief when she heard they were out of danger. Only then did she have a moment to consider the cause of the accident. A family like the Andersons would have their cars meticulously maintained. There was no way the brakes would fail on their own. A sudden brake failure could only mean one thing: sabotage. And when she thought of sabotage, her mind immediately flashed back to that day at my house, when she had seen Liam coming from the direction of the garage. Instantly, a wave of regret washed over her. Of course, Liam had harbored ill will toward me for 5 years. Now that I was back, how could he possibly just stand by and do nothing? His guilt had been so obvious that day. How had she missed it? If she had just been a little more observant, if she had warned me, would this have happened? After the regret came a wave of uncontrollable rage. She had warned him that day. She had told him that if he hurt me, it wouldn't just be the Andersons he'd have to answer to. She wouldn't let him get away with it either. And now, he had completely ignored her warning, and all 3 of us were in the hospital because of it. Liam Carter, you've really done it now. After a full week in the hospital, my parents and I finally began to wake up, one by one. When I saw the nurse at my bedside, I instinctively tried to sit up, but she gently stopped me. I'm a private nurse hired by Miss Sullivan, she said soothingly. Your parents are in the next room, and she's hired nurses for them as well. Please, rest. You've just woken up, and your injuries haven't fully healed. You need to be careful not to move. My head was still foggy, my thoughts a jumbled mess. Hearing her words, I obediently lay back down. Seeing that I had settled, the nurse took out her phone and made a call. Miss Sullivan, Mr. Graham is awake. In the small, dark storage room of the Sullivan house, the only window had been boarded up, plunging the space into darkness. All the junk that had been stored inside was cleared out, ensuring Liam, locked inside, would have no tools to aid in escape. Liam, the object of all this precaution, was bound hand and foot, a dirty rag stuffed in his mouth. His lips were cracked and peeling, and he was delirious with hunger, a pathetic heap in the corner. He could only muster his last ounce of strength to look up at Chloe, whimpering helplessly. She hung up the phone. Hearing the nurse's words, her gaze shifted to Liam, and a smile, the first in a long time, touched her lips. Liam, you should be grateful that Ethan and his parents woke up. With that, she turned and left the storage room, watching as a maid locked the door behind her before she left for the hospital, satisfied. Inside the storage room, the last sliver of light vanished as the door was locked, plunging Liam into total darkness. Tears streamed down Liam's face, a mixture of fear and hatred. He had grown up with Chloe. Besides her grandmother, he was the only person she had ever truly let into her life. He had always believed he was the most special person in her heart. But then, to save her grandmother, she became Ethan's girlfriend. And even though she had always cared more for him than for Ethan, he was still consumed by a maddening jealousy. Why, after all the years he had spent by her side, was he still not her boyfriend, while Ethan had so easily claimed that spot for 5 years? That's why he had framed Ethan, time and time again, trying to make her hate him. Everything had been going according to his plan, but then Ethan had to go and die. Ethan became her untouchable first love, and just because he had gone after him, she had completely cast him aside. He was still in her life, but most of the time, she treated him like he was invisible. He had waited 5 long years, thinking his time had finally come, but then Ethan had returned. He wanted Ethan dead, and he wanted the entire Anderson family to go down with him. But Chloe had found him out. He had been locked in this pitch-black room for a week, tortured by her day after day, deprived of even food and water. He had been reduced to this, while Ethan and his family had survived without a scratch. Liam's heart was a storm of grief and hatred with nowhere to go. He clenched his jaw so tightly that he soon tasted the metallic tang of blood in his mouth. But his mind was hazy, and the extreme hunger and thirst were so overwhelming that the moment he tasted blood, a single thought consumed him. I'm so thirsty. He raised his bound hands to his mouth and bit down hard on his own wrist. Meanwhile, Chloe was driving to the hospital when a sharp, stabbing pain shot through her head. Her hands went limp on the steering wheel. The car veered out of control, heading straight for a tree on the side of the road. The blare of the horn screamed in her ears as her head slammed into the steering wheel. Screams, shattering glass. As her consciousness faded, she thought she could hear the sound of something dripping, drop by drop, onto the pavement. Was she dying? Just before she lost consciousness completely, a mechanical voice echoed in her ear. Alert! Alert! Hero and heroine in mortal danger. Vital signs critical. World collapse imminent. Hero and heroine? What did that mean? Who was talking to her? Was she hallucinating before she died? Chloe didn't have time to process it before she slipped into unconsciousness. When she woke up again, she found herself in a strange, empty space. Countless lines of code floated in the air around her. She reached out to touch them, but her hand passed right through. A ball of light drifted toward her and scanned her from head to toe. Immediately, red exclamation points began to appear next to the floating lines of code. Data anomaly detected. Purge required. Initiating purge. The ball of light's voice was completely devoid of emotion, a machine executing a command. As the words faded, Chloe felt that same stabbing pain in her head again. Then, she felt an invisible force begin to forcibly erase her memories. To her horror, she realized she was starting to forget her memories of Ethan. Panic seized her. She wanted to run, to escape this place, but she was powerless. She wanted to fight back, but she couldn't even touch the ball of light. What terrified her even more was what the ball of light said next. Heroine's affection for hero is anomalous. Purge and rewrite required. Heroine has developed affection for side character. Purge and rewrite required. Heroine has developed homicidal intent toward hero. Purge and rewrite required. As the ball of light continued its litany, Chloe suddenly understood. She looked up, glaring at the ball of light, her voice a low growl. You're the ones controlling me? I'm the heroine? Homicidal intent toward the hero? The hero isn't Liam, is he? And the side character is Ethan. The ball of light's voice faltered for a moment before it responded. This system's sole function is to maintain the stability of this world. Answering such questions is outside its purview. That hesitation, that refusal to answer, was all the confirmation Chloe needed. A wave of absurdity washed over her. Who could accept learning that their entire life, their entire world, was nothing more than a controlled simulation? But then, Chloe remembered the words she had heard just before she lost consciousness. Hero and heroine in mortal danger. Vital signs critical. World collapse imminent. So it hadn't been a hallucination. She and Liam had both been in mortal danger, and the world had been on the verge of collapse. That's why it had pulled her into this space for a diagnostic. At that thought, a new idea sparked in Chloe's mind. She had thought Ethan's fake death had freed him from the plot's control. She had thought all she needed to do was follow his example, change her identity, and she too would be free. She hadn't had the chance to try it yet, but now, an opportunity to break free completely had presented itself. If the death of the hero and heroine would cause the world to collapse, and this system only cared about the world's stability, then she had leverage. Let me go. I don't want to be your damn heroine. I just want to be with Ethan. Chloe's breath came in ragged gasps, terrified the system would resume purging her memories. If she forgot Ethan, if she became a puppet living under someone else's control, she would rather be dead. The system's light flickered, as if it didn't understand. Then she spoke again. You can wipe my memories, but you can't wipe away my love for Ethan. Even if I forget now, I'll remember eventually. I'll remember that the person I truly love isn't some stupid hero you created. And if you try to force me to follow your plot, I'll kill myself. For once, the system was silent. It pulsed around her for a long moment before finally speaking, its voice no longer a monotone command. Is being the heroine so bad? You could have opportunities others would envy, endless wealth, a hero whose entire world revolves around you. You could be the most powerful person in this world, if you wanted. Its voice softened, taking on a persuasive tone, hoping this human would understand its offer. If she just accepted the memory purge and rewrite, returned to her designated path, she could have everything she ever wanted. Everything except the love of the side character. But Chloe was unmoved. She shook her head stubbornly, her gaze unwavering. I don't want any of it. I just want to be with my Ethan. Even if it means losing everything you have, you won't regret it. The system didn't understand human emotion. It only knew that, logically, this was not an advantageous choice. But she nodded. No regrets. But Ethan Anderson is destined to die. The entire purpose of his existence is to fulfill his role in the heroine's story and then die at her hands. The system's words sent a chill through Chloe. She stood frozen, her mind a complete blank. So even after he had faked his death, was he still destined to die? The system watched her stunned expression with a sense of satisfaction, indulging a small, cruel impulse. Though the ball of light had no face, the way it pulsed betrayed its smugness. How dare this human threaten it? Since its creation, it had managed countless worlds. She was just the heroine of one small world, could always find a replacement. The thought stopped abruptly. The pulsing of the light stuttered. Wait, wasn't that exactly what she wanted? To not be the heroine? The system paused, its internal data processing in a tangled mess. After a moment, it seemed to give up, pretending to consult the plot before speaking again, its teasing tone gone. Oh my! It seems Ethan Anderson already completed his storyline and died 5 years ago. Hearing this, Chloe snapped back to reality. So when it said Ethan was destined to die, it meant the same thing he had told her. She let out a breath of relief, but the system's attention was back on her. Everything you have now is a result of your heroine's aura. If you truly choose to give up your status as the heroine, when you return to your world, you will have nothing. Not every side character is as lucky as Ethan Anderson, born the only son of the wealthiest man in the city. If you give up your role, someone else will take your place. You won't even be able to keep your own name, just like Ethan Anderson. As Ethan Anderson, he was destined to die. But as Arthur Graham, a minor, unmentioned character, he is free to live his own life. The system thought this would scare her off, but instead, she just nodded, her resolve unshaken. I voluntarily give up my role as the heroine and everything that comes with it. I will never regret it. The system asked for confirmation one last time, and her answer was the same. No regrets. The day I woke up, the nurse told me Chloe would be coming to visit. But by the day my parents and I were all discharged, she still hadn't appeared. I thought the nurse had been lying, but I later learned that Chloe had been in a car accident. She was seriously injured and had almost died. My heart sank. I immediately asked a nurse to take me to her room. In the ICU, Chloe lay in a coma. The only signs of life were the faint mist on her respirator mask and the steady beep of the heart monitor beside her. The nurse told me the accident had happened on her way to see me. She had suddenly lost consciousness at the wheel. A pang of guilt shot through me. We had only just seen each other again after 5 years, and I hadn't treated her well at all. Because, as I had told her, I had never once felt any love from her. But now, seeing her lying so lifeless in that hospital bed, my own heart ached. When my parents and I were in the accident, she was there to take care of us. But when she had her accident, I didn't even know until I was completely recovered myself. I'm sorry, Chloe. I didn't really owe her anything. I had forced the relationship on her. It was only natural that she didn't love me. I had given up on that love, tried to escape my tragic fate, only for her to chase me down. I had held a grudge against her for those 5 years, and I had never let her coldness get to me. I lowered my head, my voice choked with emotion. In my peripheral vision, I saw her finger twitch. My heart leaped. I slammed the call button, and a doctor rushed in moments later. Chloe was awake. When she opened her eyes, the doctor was gone. A nurse was giving instructions to a man standing nearby. She turned her head, and her eyes fell on the man's face. She froze. Ethan Anderson? The man who had died 5 years ago. No, that wasn't right. Then she remembered the welcome party the Andersons had been planning, and she understood. He was the adopted son. She frowned, an instinctive dislike for the Anderson family rising within her. Seeing me approach, she spoke sharply. What are you doing here? The voice was familiar, yet so distant. I froze, not expecting this reaction. I was about to explain, but then I realized something was very wrong. This wasn't Chloe. Or rather, this wasn't the Chloe who had recently told me she loved me, the one who had promised to find a way for us to be together. This was the Chloe from the original plot, the one who despised me. The moment I realized this, I wiped all emotion from my face. I came to see how you were, and to thank you for hiring the nurses to take care of my parents and me after our accident. I'll pay you back for it. Without waiting for her reaction, I turned and walked out. But as I left the room, my steps began to slow. If this was the Chloe from the original plot, then what had happened to the other one? Was she gone? I left the hospital feeling a sense of loss. My parents were already waiting in the car. Seeing my expression, they assumed Chloe's condition was worse than I'd let on and asked about her with concern. But I just shook my head. She's awake. But I don't think she'll be having anything to do with our family from now on. My parents couldn't get any more out of me, so we just headed home. But when we reached our house, the car, instead of pulling into the garage, stopped at the front gate. "Sir, ma'am, Mr. Arthur, there's someone at the gate," the driver said. Hearing this, the three of us leaned forward to look. There was indeed a thin figure huddled by the gate. We couldn't see her face, and my parents, assuming she was a beggar, were about to have the driver shoo her away. But a sudden thought struck me. I stopped them and got out of the car. Seeing me walk straight toward the figure, my parents, unable to stop me, got out of the car as well. I stopped in front of the person. "Who are you? Why are you here?" The person looked up, revealing the face I had loved for so many years. When she saw it was me, her eyes lit up with joy. "Ethan, I told you I would find a way to come to you with nothing in our way. I did it. I'm not the heroine Chloe Sullivan anymore. I'm just Claire. The only thing is, I have nothing now. So, would you be willing to buy me one more time? I just need a place to stay and food to eat. I can even warm your bed." Hearing her words, I understood everything. Chloe Sullivan was the heroine, and she had to follow her storyline. So the Chloe who loved me was now Claire, with nothing to her name. I smiled at her and nodded. "All right, but I have a lot of demands. If you can't meet them, the deal's off." Claire nodded eagerly. "Anything you want, my dear master. I guarantee you'll be satisfied."